Hey everybody, today I'm going to show you how to add animation to your UI collection view controller using Swift with Xcode. So let's go ahead and get started. Alright, so the first thing we need to do is open up Xcode and create a new Xcode project. This will be a single view application, and I'm just going to call this app Stories, as I hope to actually turn this application into something where you actually browse through stories. But anyway, let's go over to Language, Swift, Devices, iPhone, click Next, and Create. Now let's make this a bit bigger. And let's head over into our main.storyboard. Delete the view controller that we have right over here. Go over to your viewcontroller.swift file. And then inside of here, we want to change the class of this to be a UI collection view controller. And then now we can go back to our main.storyboard, click on our collection view controller right over here, click and drag that right into our scene. Click on the view controller that we just created and head over to our identity inspector right over here, and we want to set the class equal to view controller, or basically what the class is over here in our view controller.swift file, right, as you can see right there. Now let's head back over to our main.storyboard, and now let's click on our UI collection view controller and head down into our attributes inspector. Click on the view right here, and you will see that you can change the background color. I don't want it to be this ugly black color, so let's go ahead and add some green, blue, and then we're just going to make it a nice light blue background color. And then just close out of that, and then we can make this cell a bit bigger. And now let's click over here on our UI collection view controller cell, and we need to go over to our size inspector, as you can see right over here, and click on the size and change that to custom. We want to make the width of this to be equal to 300 and the height of it to just be 200. You can of course play with these numbers, but it makes it easier to have a divisible number, or an easily divisible number. Say if I had 301, it's not exactly easily divisible. So we have 300, and half of that will be 150. Very easy. So now let's go over to our image view, and we're just going to click and drag an image view onto our scene. Now click and drag this image view so that we have a height. Again, this is another good reason to have easily divisible. This will make it so it's automatically half of the scene. So now we have our UI image view with a height of 100 and a width of 300. Now we also need to add a text view into our scene. So I'm just going to add that right in the bottom there and stretch it out to the width. Now the size of our scroll view should be 300 by 100 as our width and height. Now let's right click or control click and drag from our UI image view over to our collection view controller, and we want to set some constraints. So we need the leading space, basically meaning from over here, how spaced out is it between the edge of this container view controller. As you can see, it's right next to each other, so it's going to try staying next to each other all the time. Now we also need hold shift and click on the trailing space, the top space, skip the bottom space as we will be connecting this with our text view, and then center horizontally and center vertically. Click enter. And now we need a right click or control click and drag from our text view, and we basically want to do the same exact thing. Leading space, trailing space, basically the spaces here, and not the top space this time, as we will be connecting that to our UI image view. The bottom space and center vertically and horizontally. Click enter. And now we're going to right click or control click and drag from our text view over to our UI image view, and we're going to give it vertical spacing, and this will allow it so the UI image view always stays the exact same way that we want it to be. Now let's right click or control click and drag on the image view and drag it right to the image view that we already have selected. And we want to keep the aspect ratio that we have. And this is going to make it easier to keep the image view the same exact way you want it every time. Now let's get into some programming. So let's head over to our assistant editor, and over here in our assistant editor, we also need to add a few more super classes to our scene. So we need to say UI collection view controller, comma, UI collection view data source. This is where the data for the view controller will come from. And then we also need the UI collection view delegate. So this is going to delegate, or basically control, our collection view that we have created. Now just go down here, and we want to just start typing in collection view, and as you can see, there are a lot of choices that you can pick from. Right now we want to deal with cell for row at index path, and this will allow us to populate all of these cells that we have created. So first thing we need to write in this code is it's looking for what our UI collection view cell will be called. So we need to say var cell will be equal to a collection view dot DQ reusable cell with identifier. So basically this cell right over here is going to have an identifier. So if we click on our cell right over here, we can go over to our identifier, and this will be the reuse identifier that we want to do. This will make it so as we can create as many of these cells as we want just if we have this identifier. So we can say cell as the identifier. It'll be very easy just for tutorial purposes. Of course, you can change it to whatever you want. Now head back over to our DQ reusable cell with identifier, and we want to change this identifier string with an open quotation mark, close quotation mark, and inside of that we are just going to type in cell, or whatever you called it in your attributes inspector on your cell. Now let's head back over to our var cell, so on and so forth. We wanted to make this equal to index path. Now if you don't know where I'm getting that from, that's actually from right up here where it says cell for item at index path, index path. It creates this index path for the collection view that you have created. And we're going to be referencing that quite a bit, so I just wanted to make that clear. Now let's go down here and we're going to return cell. Now as you can remember, it was saying it wanted a UI collection view cell to be populating. So we just wanted to say return cell. And right now it's giving us an error. So right up here we need to say var cell. After this is all done, we need to go up here, say as exclamation mark, and this will be as a UI collection view cell. And now we have no more errors. Now next thing we need to do is actually take this image view that we have created right here and populate it with some images. So in order to do this, we just need to click on this image view, and we need to go over to our tag right over here inside of our attributes inspector, and right over here it says tag. So we want to change this to 1. Now this basically means if I go cell.view with tag, it's going to be able to reference this UI image view via the tag that we just created. So this will be tag 1. Now we want to take this cell.view with tag and apply it to a variable, or basically our UI image view that we need to create and populate. So we say var, and we'll just call this image view will be equal to a cell.view with tag 1 as our UI image view. Exclamation mark right after the as. So now we just created this image view, and it's going to be able to reference this image view on every cell that we create. So now we can say image view dot image will be equal to, and we'll say UI image open parentheses, and this will be named open quotation mark, close quotation mark. And now let's go populate this with some images. So right over here I have some images of me showing off a shirt. So let's shrink this down real quick. And let's add these images over into our image.xc assets. So right in here, we're just going to click and drag our images over here into the left view right here. And this will allow us to reference these images on our app. So we can go over to our viewcontroller.swift. Let's make this a bit bigger. And let's close off our assistant editor, as we don't need that anymore. And let's say image view.image equals UI image, and this will be named, and we can take all these names that we have right here. They're all very simply named image._5222.jpg. So now we need to plug this all into an array so it will populate according to the collection view. So right up here we can just create a new variable. This will be our images array. Will be equal to an array of strings. Basically, we will be referencing the names of all the image view controllers of all these images that we have in our images.xc assets. Now down here in our image view.image equals UI image named, we actually want to replace this with images array open bracket, close bracket, and inside of this bracket, this will be our index path.row. So basically, if it's at index path.row 1, or basically the second cell, it will pick the second image. Say if this is the second image, it will pick this one right here. So now let's head back over to our viewcontroller.swift, and we're just going to add this into our images array. So say images array will be equal to open bracket, close bracket, open quotation mark, close quotation mark, and we'll just do this so we have all 5 of our images. And then we have our names of these are img underscore 5222. And then we can basically just copy and paste this, and this will just change the last letter or the last number of all of these names for me. So this will be image 5223, 4, 5, and 6. Now we need to go down here and say collection view, and this will be actually number of items in section. How many items do we want in there? We're just going to count the amount of images that we have. So we can say return images array.count. And that will populate our collection view with however many images that we have. So now if we were to build and run this, we should actually see our collection view. And right now we are actually getting a black screen, so we need to head over to our main.storyboard, click on our scene that we have right here, and go over to our view controller and head over to the attributes inspector, and we need to check mark this part where it says is initial view controller. Now if we were to build and run this, you will see that it is populating with all of our images that we wanted. Now for some reason it builds and runs in this weird format, and the reason is because for some reason it defaults back to the default stage of the cell, which is not what we wanted. See, if I were to rebuild and run this now that it's default, it actually shows me what I'm looking at right now. And it's just funny that it overwrote whatever I tried putting in there in the custom cell. So in order to fix this, I went over to the cell, and I actually had to click and drag this over to a width of 300 and a height of 200, as you can see up here in the top left corner. Now if we were to build and run this, it will actually look perfectly fine. This didn't happen on the other project I was working on, but for some reason it happened on this project, so whatever. But right now, as you can see, that all the images are showing up, and there's a problem right now that this is actually going behind the header right here, and we don't want that to happen. So in order for this to fix this, let's head over to our collection view, and we want to set the spacing or the top inset to 20. That way it's just right underneath the header. And then we also want to have a left spacing of 10 and a bottom spacing of 10 and a right spacing of 10. This way we just have even spacing on iPads and other things. So if we were to build and run this, now you can see it looks better. Now next thing we need to get into is head over to our viewcontroller.swift, and inside of our viewcontroller.swift we want to actually animate our collection view item to grow bigger so that we can see all of the elements that are inside of our collection view a bit better. So if we say did select item at index, what we need to do inside of here is what item did he select and how are we going to handle this. And for some reason Xcode has given me this error where it says insert override, even though it should automatically do that for me. But either way, there we are, override. And right inside of our view is did select item at index path. First thing we need to do is actually create the item so we can reference it later on. So say var cell will be equal to, and this will be equal to our container view dot cell for item at index path, and this will be index path. We'll close the parentheses, and then down here we want to add some animations to happen. So we say UI view dot animate with duration. When we're going to say animate with duration, delay, using spring with damping, we're going to just fill all of that in. So this one right down here, double click or tab all that in, and we're going to set the duration to 0.5 seconds, so it's going to be a very quick transition. A delay of 0 seconds, so it's going to happen automatically. Use spring with damping. Now spring with damping and initial velocity happen from a range of 0 to 1, where 0 is basically nothing and 1 is everything. So I'm just going to set this equal to 1 and the initial spring velocity equal to 1. So we're going to get a really quick look to it. Now if we go to options, we are just going to put this as nil. Animation, open parentheses, close parentheses, and inside of those parentheses say open curly bracket, close curly bracket. And completion, we're going to set this equal to nil. Now inside of here, what exactly do we want to animate? Well, we want to make our cell a bit bigger. So we're going to make it fill the entire screen, and then later on we are going to shrink that down so we can continue viewing our stories. So we could say cell.frame will be equal to our collection view dot bounds, or the boundaries that surround the collection view. And then now if we were to build and run this, you will actually see that as soon as we click on one of these items, you can click on that and it grows. But there's also a problem that you can scroll, and we don't want that to happen. So in order for us to fix this, we just need to go over here to our cell and say collection view dot scroll enabled. We will set this equal to false. So we're going to take off the scrolling ability of our collection view as soon as this loads. Now another thing that needs to be done is if we were to build and run this again, you will see that our cell that we have right here, if we click on that, it's behind all of our other cells, and we don't want that to happen. So and we would just want to say cell.superView. So basically the whole view, we're going to bring this up to the front of our whole view. So say dot after the super view, say dot bring subview to front, and we're going to reference cell again. We are going to bring the cell all the way up to the front. Now if we were to build and run this, and apparently it needs an exclamation mark afterwards. So now if we were to build and run this, you will see that we can click on our view, and you can see that it fills the whole entire screen without anything in its way. Now another problem we need to fix is this photo is very warped, and we don't want that to happen. So let's click on this UI image view right here, and we are going to set this equal to an aspect fill, sorry. And now if we were to build and run this, you will see that we look a bit better. Now another thing you'll find really annoying is this is actually scrolling right here. So let's head back over to our main.storyboard, click on our text view, and we want to make him editable, no, and selectable, no. And then we're also going to change this scrolling enabled equal to no. Now let's head back over to our viewcontroller.swift, and we also want to programmatically save what we just did. So in here we want to create a new variable, and this will be our text view that we created. So we're going to call this our text view. It will be equal to our cell.view with tag, and again we need to call the tag. So let's go over to our main.storyboard, click on our text view, and our text view tag, we will just call this a tag of 2. That was a lot of T's. Now let's head back over to our viewcontroller.swift, and inside of here we need to say cell.view with tag, and this again will be the tag of 2. And after that we need to say as a UI text view. Now we also need to take this text view that we created and say text view.scroll enabled will be equal to false. So again, scrolling will not be enabled. Now down here in our collection view, you at this did select item at index path. As it is animating, we want to make our text view able to scroll again just in case we're reading a story. So again, we can just copy these 2 lines of code and just place that right inside of our animate with duration. And it says we were getting an error, so we need to add an exclamation point right after the cell. Now if we were to build and run this, we will actually get no scrolling on our cell that we created. So there we have it. We have our cells all scrolling through, and we won't be able to scroll through these texts. Then we can click on one of these cells, and we can read more about it and scroll through if it was a bigger amount of text. Now again, you will notice that you can't get out of this story that you're reading right now, so we need to add a back button. So head over to our main.storyboard, and we're just going to add a back button. So just click and drag a button onto our scene. As soon as I can find one. Here we are, the button. Click and drag that onto our scene. We could take this button, and we're just going to call this back. We're just changing the title to back. We're going to change the text color. I'm going to make it a nice grayish color, like so. And then we can close off the colors, head back over to our viewcontroller.swift, actually go back to our main.storyboard, click on the back button, and then we want to add a tag for this as well. Now I'm going to make this tag 3, so now that that's done, we need to head over to our viewcontroller.swift, and again we need to reference our back button. So up here we can say, and now we need to create this new variable, so this will be our var back button, and this will be equal to our cell.view with tag, and this will be 3. Now we need to say as a UI button, again exclamation point after as, and then UI button. And right after this, we need to say back button dot hidden will be equal to true. Now this is just because you don't want it to be shown as soon as they're looking through the app. So as soon as it makes it larger, it's actually going to be shown. Now we can just take this line of code these lines of code right here and take our back button and move that down to the animate with duration. Erase the spaces, and we're going to say back button.hidden and set this equal to false. And again, it's wanting an exclamation point right after the cell. So now if we were to build and run, we will actually have our back button showing up on our Stories app. So we click on this and it shows our back button. Now right now the back button, it does absolutely nothing. Now we need to go right underneath here and we need to say a new function. So this new function will be equal to our back button action. So this action will be called as soon as we click the back button. Now in this back button action, we just need to say open parentheses, close parentheses, open curly bracket, close curly bracket. And inside of this, we need to say collection view dot scroll enabled will be equal to true now, so we can actually start scrolling and look through other stories. And then we also need to say collection view dot reload items at index path. So we're actually going to dismiss the view that we are showing and load that back to its original position. So we need to say right after this will be our index path. Now we can't just reference our index path, so we need to create a new index path just by easily saying var index path will be equal to our collection view dot index paths for selected items as our ns index path, and do open bracket close bracket ns index path like so. And then we can easily just put this index path right and down here. So now we are reloading all of the items that were selected and putting them right back into the collection view that we wanted it to be in. Now down here we also need to just take this var button and we're going to also add a new action. So we're going to say back button dot add target. So we're going to add a new target. This basically means what are we going to call when this button is pressed. So we're going to say the target is equal to self. It's going to affect the view controller itself. Action, we will set this action equal to selector. So just type in capital S selector, open parentheses, close parentheses. And this basically is going to be the name of the function we want to call when this button is pressed. So we're going to take this back button action and put that right into here. And be sure it's in quotation marks or else it will not work properly. Now we need to go in here to our view for control events. So basically this means on what events do you want this selector to be called, or what the function to be called. So we need to go in here to our for control events and say UI control events dot touch up inside. So this is basically he clicks down and then he lets go and then we want it to be called. Now if we were to build and run this, you will see that we can click on this, click on our back button, and it'll take it back to its original place. Now we can also do this for all our other stories. And there you have it. Now we have our Stories app completely working. We can click the back button and we can search through others and look at others as we go along. Thank you all so much for watching. I will be adding more onto this project later on where we will actually go through UIKit dynamics and just adding more cool animations onto this whole scene. So be sure to subscribe for that. Anyway, thank you all so much for watching and I will see you in the next one. Bye.